We know that healthcare executives have their sights on high reliability, just culture, and psychological safety. In true Capstone fashion, we're all about helping simplify the complex and helping entire healthcare organizations execute successfully on big, bold initiatives such as these. One such way that we can help is through our upcoming Healthcare Executive Forum. In its 13th year, this forum has been helping healthcare executives learn proven approaches for executing successfully on big, bold initiatives. So, whether you're just starting your journey to high reliability or well on your way, this event has something for everyone. Our time honored commitment is that every attendee leave with an actionable and impactful plan that they can just start when they get back to the office the next day. The event is on June 18th and 19th in Madison, Wisconsin, and you can go to capstoneleadership.net and under the resources page, look for the details on our upcoming events. Plan now for you and your executive team to attend.
One of the ways that I believe we're different than a lot of educational events is that it's not just a bunch of PowerPoints and narrative. We support these executives with the workbooks, with the materials we provide that give them the tools and resources for how to apply this. We don't show them something and expect them to reinvent it when they get back. If we show them something, they've got a QR code in their packet. They've got a handout in their packet. Everything supports this work to take things back so that whether or not you came with a full team, you can really help them to visualize it and help them to see what you learned and really understand why you believe it would be valuable for your organization.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzloff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Welcome to another episode of Culture Change RX. This week on the show, we've got Courtney. She is one of our Capstone coaches, and we have not had a coach on the show in a while, so we are a little bit overdue. Courtney's been with us before, and I'm glad to have her back. Today, we're going to be talking about senior leaders escaping the day-to-day whirlwind in their organization to head off to training together, and we're going to have a conversation around that. And so, Courtney, let's start first by having you introduce yourself, and then we are going to jump right in.
You bet. Thank you, Sue. I'm excited to be on the podcast again and to talk about this really important topic in development. As Sue said, my name is Courtney Kloehn, and I am a transformational expert on the Capstone team. But before that, I was in the critical access hospital space for 19 years before coming over to Capstone, Vice President of Professional Services and Compliance Officer. And really, I got to experience firsthand exactly what we're about to talk about here today. So I'm not going to spoil that ahead of time, but I'm excited to be here and talk to you about the value of this education opportunity.
Great. So some of the folks that listen to the podcast have already been hearing that we're getting ready for our 13th annual Healthcare Executive Forum. It's an event that we put on once a year. Used to always be in Michigan, but we're moving it to Wisconsin this year. And so Courtney has been in the audience at these healthcare executive forums, and she's also helped teach at one of these healthcare executive forums. So that's really what we're going to talk about today is the benefits to sitting in an audience together as senior leadership teams and learning together, especially the kind of content we bring to an event like this. So with that kind of tee up and introduction, Courtney, let's just jump right into what you experienced as a member of a senior leadership team when you attended a healthcare executive forum with other members from your team.
You bet. And so, Sue, we were really fortunate because we attended the Healthcare Executive Forum that was a special event in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So it was mostly in Michigan, but we were so fortunate that our entire team was able to go. And really what drew us in, so we'd been a partner for many years with Capstone Leadership Solutions, great organization, and we needed to make that leap from great to even greater. And so we signed up and we attended as an entire executive team. All of the members of our team were there. And it was really fun about that experience is a lot of times, every time I've attended an educational experience, I take pages and pages of notes and I'm in my day to day and share it with other people. But then what happens? We get sucked up in the operations. We get sucked up into the day to day whirlwind, and our good intent of making sure that we carry forward those action items, they kind of get backburnered to other things that need to happen. And so because I was there with the other amazing executives, I was taking notes and considering how they might be interpreting the information, how they might be taking away that information from our organization. And what was beautiful was you built in opportunities at the Healthcare Executive Forum for us to then meet after sessions and talk about what did we learn. And because we were all executives on the same team, we were able to each share our takeaways, but then come to an agreement on an action plan for how are we going to apply this. So now not only am I learning the information and trying to set really good intent to carry it forward, all of us are in the same room learning the same information, working together in that moment outside of the whirlwind to come up with an action plan for carrying it forward. And we're holding each other accountable once we're back in the organization. And so that was my first experience with all of our executives being at the same learning event. And it was really powerful. But then the added element is the networking. And so not only were we learning together and coming up with a plan, had the opportunity to network with others and bring that back to our group work together. And so a lot of value, a lot of power in having all of the executives there.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I also noticed with your team when you were there at that event was there was space in the venue that outside of the hours of the actual event and the work you were doing at the event, I saw you gathered together as a team. Sometimes it looked like you were socially just engaging and having fun and enjoying each other and bonding in that way. But I also saw you working, like you actually spent some time I saw working on some things that had nothing to do with the executive forum, but you use that space and time and opportunity to really maximize getting out of the day-to-day whirlwind and being together and being able to think and work together without all the interruptions that happen, as we know, in our work days.
And build that camaraderie. We always try and consider ways that we can get to know each other better on a personal level, get to know each other better as a human being. But when you're back home, you have so many demands pulling at you to where when we all excused ourselves for 2 days to be at this event together, that's why those conversations can happen so now. So just socializing is because we don't have other things pulling at our time and attention in that moment. We are investing in being there together.
Even the car ride or the airplane ride or however you're getting there, if you're doing that together, those are opportunities for both that socialization and relationship building, but also probably some work conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned when your executive team came to the Health Executive Forum, the topic for that event was good to great, great to even greater. Each year we do change up the topic for that event. Our Capstone Leadership Summit, which is another public event that we host, is our 2-day leadership summit that's really for frontline leaders and senior leaders of any sort. And that event has a standard curriculum that's kind of our signature leadership model content that's been in place for about 13 solid years. But this healthcare executive event is something special. We look at current issues or challenges faced by senior leadership teams, and we really target those for a topic of the year. This year, our topic is going to be focused on high reliability. psychological safety and just culture. And you know firsthand, Courtney, being a coach on the Capstone team, that these are things that our partners are really interested in strategically. When they make that move from good to great, great to even greater, they're getting their sights on high reliability. And so that is our theme this year. And you'll be on the coaching staff, and we're getting ready to have our in detail meetings to get that curriculum all ready to go for our June event. But last year, you taught at our event, which was on maximizing momentum through time, teamwork, and trust. And you were able to co-present with Jane and I at that event. And that's a different experience, I'm sure, from being in the audience with the executive team to being in front of entire executive teams. And so tell us a little bit about how that felt and what you saw with the executive teams that were there, Courtney.
It's interesting because the dynamics between being in the audience to being a presenter and coach at those events. So when I was in the audience, I was hyper focused on how are we going to use this at our organization. When I'm presenting to these amazing executives in the room, it was interesting how when one of them would speak up with an idea or a question or an example for how they're using something similar, others from their organization, because they came together, they're adding context to that or they're building upon that. And so you're watching this really great cohesive conversation take place that might not if there was just one executive from that organization in the audience, but it's helping them to, in the moment as they're learning, build upon this information and start to determine how can we use it in our organization. And so as a presenter at the Healthcare Executive Forum, it was really fun to witness that dynamic. And then when they would break apart to their group work and they'd go to be with their executives they came with, it would add value to that follow-up conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is fun to watch that spark happen and that dynamic of the interaction and the teams looking at it together to say, this is something we can do something with, but what does that look like for us? And you can see them like processing in real time and planning in real time and figuring it out. And so, you mentioned that allowing space for that is really important as a presenter. And we do that intentionally, when we set up the event, of just really making sure that the way that we facilitate the learning and the learning activities and the teaching and all of that allows space for the networking and the meeting people you don't know and bouncing your ideas off them, but then having time to process with your own team and plan with your own team. What about those individual stragglers that we always get? So in the audience, there's always, or even a team where not everyone can come, but a few of them at least do. We have a lot of that where the entire executive team can't make it, but a few people are missing from their team, or maybe I'm the only person that can make it. What do you think about some approaches they can use to make sure they maximize a return on investment for their time spent?
Absolutely. So I was in that situation on Mackinac Island in 2022, I believe it was, where I came to the Healthcare Executive Forum. I was the only one able to make that trip. And so I did experience that myself. And so some of the things that I would say to maximize your takeaways from that event and to make sure that you're applying those learnings. One is to make sure that you are just being bold and introducing yourself to others in the room. And something that I know can be overwhelming or intimidating sometimes, but make sure that you're getting to know these other amazing people in the room, because honestly, every group I've met at these healthcare executive forums, they have been incredible executives. Getting yourself out there. And then we, as the coaches, we do leave time for that networking. So not only that group discussion with the group you came with, but also let's mix it up a bit and have different people meet others from other organizations. And then having a plan for how you're going to take that information back. And so when I went to the Healthcare Executive Forum at Mackinac Island, when I returned with the executive team, share what I learned and talk about how can we apply some of this. So that made it so that I didn't let the whirlwind distract me from using that content. It's a little bit different because we don't have all of our accountability buddies there. And so even if you can just go with a couple other executives, you've got this built-in accountability system there that, hey, we talked about this at the forum, how are we going to apply it? 3 months later, how are we using it? But I would say that there was so much value, even though I was the only one able to attend that particular forum. A lot of value came out of that. The networking was huge, and the coaches and facilitators of those events do a great job. We all do a great job at pulling in everyone from the audience. And so making sure that you prioritize networking and have a plan for how to take that back afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that my organization did when I was an executive is that when any leader went anywhere to learn, so if the organization was investing on even one person going or a small group of people going to any outside learning event, was that there was a requirement that they brought it back and had to package it to present it, their key learnings and takeaways. So if an organization has a quarterly leadership training, that's a regular standard ongoing event as part of their ongoing leadership development process, they would be on the next agenda. So you kind of had a requirement that, it's one thing when you're sitting in an audience to learn. It's another one when you have to go back and teach it. So you're listening differently, right? And so that was one thing that my organization folded into our leadership development process was any outside learning had to be brought inside. And we had a very formal way and even a timeline for that. So it couldn't get away from you, right?
Right.
So that was good. But it is easy when you get back to the office to, think, oh, my to-do list was already full when I left. And now I've got all these great ideas and I'd like to implement them, but I'm not sure if we have the time or energy.
Absolutely. Well, and I love how you mentioned that your takeaways or how you're absorbing the information changes when you know you have to go back and present it. It also changes when you know that in 45 minutes we're going to be doing group conversation and I need to be prepared to talk on this. And so, it just changes the learning environment. You tend to be less distracted, more engaged, more really thinking through how you're going to use the information.
Yeah, we're kind of known for that in Capstone, as you know, either when you were in the audience, but now teaching, we're kind of known for this in Capstone. We really believe in learn do. So you don't have to apply everything. You can't learn everything all at once. You can't do everything you learned all at once. But we really challenge our audience, even as simple as do one thing, right? You might have learned 20 things, but what's the one thing? Or maybe two or three at most. But we know that, expecting our audiences to take everything and implement it right away just isn't going to happen. So they're also sitting there triaging, right? They're like trying to figure out what is my one, two, or three things. And we pretty much set that as an expectation right from the start is get looking for your one, two, or three things. And that's part of the individual, but also the group process that we see happening in our audiences for sure.
Absolutely. To your point, Sue, about taking things back, one of the ways that I believe we're different than a lot of educational events is that it's not just a bunch of PowerPoints and narrative. We support these executives with the workbooks, with the materials we provide that give them the tools and resources for how to apply this. We don't show them something and expect them to reinvent it when they get back. If we show them something, they've got a QR code in their packet. They've got a handout in their packet. Everything supports this work to take things back so that whether or not you came with a full team, you can really help them to visualize it and help them to see what you learned and really understand why you believe it would be valuable for your organization. And so I think that's another thing that really sets not just the healthcare executive forum apart, but all of the training that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. We really want to, we have this other mantra, right? Just start, which means that you have to do the training in such a way that if it's going to be learn, do, they have to be equipped and inspired to do it. And so, yeah, that's on us to make sure that they don't have to struggle anymore. Then change is already a struggle, right? Doing more or different is always a struggle. So making that as easy as possible by making sure they're well equipped with the resources they need. And I think that coming up to your point about that is our topic of high reliability and just culture and psychological safety. Those are big, big topics, right? And so thinking about how do we make this simple? How do we make it doable? I know when I was a healthcare leader, for 20 some years. When we started getting our sights on high reliability and just culture and these kind of things, like there wasn't a lot of like actionable information. There was a lot of conceptual, like kind of things, but I'm talking, 15 years ago or so. I know there's more out there now, but still today, I see that actionable, doable, simplified approaches to these really important concepts are what are challenging our healthcare leaders and organizations, which is why we're tackling it this year.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, it's just like if you read a contract from an attorney in healthcare, there's a lot of legalities and it's really complex. And unless you're in that space all the time, it can be challenging to know, what do I need to pull out? What do I actually need to do with this information? And I think what is beautiful about the approach that we take is we've always got the what, why, and how in the back of our brain. What are we training them on? Why does this matter for you? Kind of like that pot of gold. The how is, how do I carry this forward? How do I logically apply this in my organization? And so we break apart kind of that terminology that can be confusing, or all of the words we can get lost in, and we turn it into what can they carry away today to make an impact with this information. And so, high reliability, just culture, psychological safety, we hear these words used all the time in healthcare, but it's about simplifying the how part of it. And so the what,
Mhm.
the why is really important. We always want to know why, but the how part of it is what we're able to simplify and help others carry forward.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And most people that follow our work and probably this podcast truly know that our area of expertise of true application is in small and rural healthcare organizations. So our work has primarily been with small and rural healthcare organizations. Sometimes they're nursing homes or ambulatory surgery centers or things like that, but most of them are small community hospitals, most of them in rural areas. And so when you take some of these topics and you start applying how to lead them and do them in small and rural healthcare organizations, like you say, the what and the why is still the same, but the how sometimes lands a little differently, right? And I find that when I, as a healthcare leader, would go to big national conferences and events and I would learn about some of these things, they would be talking about have your person that, leads this, do this. And I'm like, we don't have anybody like that in our organization, or we don't have that department. We don't have an OD department or an office of the patient experience or high reliability or whatever. So we're really talking about another hat that everyone wears, which is the hat of high reliability or whatever it is. So yeah, making it doable in small and rural is kind of what we're all about. But we know that when some folks, because we know some larger organizations love to follow our leadership work, love to follow our executive conferences as well, it does apply to them and it is useful. But we like to take that extra step in talking about how to actually apply it in small and rural.
Absolutely, because it's unique. In small and rural healthcare, we wear multiple hats. And so it is a unique approach. But the one thing that I've loved, our audience, especially for the Healthcare Executive Forum, aren't all executives from small and rural hospitals. Some of those executives are from bigger hospitals. But the stories that I've loved hearing after the fact are the ones of, even though the whole organization isn't adopting this, I could see how it can apply to my division and I'm carrying it forward. And it's changed our division in this way. And so even those small incremental changes, even if it's not for the whole organization, they're impactful. And that's really why we do the work we do, is to make that impact in healthcare. And so, yes, we specialize in rural healthcare. That's not the only group that's going to find value in the Healthcare Executive Fund, because I've heard some great stories about how they've applied it in bigger settings.
Yeah, yeah. If there were executives out there right now, either an individual executive or an entire team of them that's thinking about coming to our event in June, what would you say to them is like 3 reasons why you should? Let's think about 3 best reasons why you should register to attend the upcoming event.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first being that team building and camaraderie with your executive team. And so I had worked for many years with many of the executives on my team, but having that ability to pull away from all of the day to day demands and get to know each other better and work together in a very targeted focus area. That was so incredibly impactful. And not only for that event, but the relationship building that you then carry back into the organization and the way you team together changes in such a positive way. And so that camaraderie and team building, huge benefit if you're able to come together. The second thing is really being reassured that what you're going to learn at this event is going to be immediately applicable. So are you going to apply everything at once? No, you'll overwhelm yourself. But are you going to have the tools and resources you need to immediately apply things in your day to day? Absolutely. That is what we focus on. And so that would be number two, not only the training, the verbal training content, we are going to send you away with the tools and resources to apply what you learn. And then the third thing being the networking. And so when you come to these events, you meet some incredible executives that you stay in touch with long after the event is over. And there is so much value in that networking. So I would say those are the top three in my book.
Yeah, those are three great ones. That they all provide a great return on investment. When you mentioned about the, networking and staying in touch, that's usually in the first hour or two of day one. People are saying, we are going to get an attendee list with contact information, right? Like they're always like, because we don't provide that in advance. It's funny because by just an hour or two in, they already know that they're going to want to be in touch with these people after this event is over. Yeah.
They establish accountability buddies between each other. If you get a couple who came by themselves, they'll keep in touch and they'll keep connected on how did you use this or how did you apply this or I know you were hoping to do this. How did that work out? And so that's another great takeaway from these events. If you're not able to attend with a full team, you might find yourself a forever networking accountability buddy from that group.
Speaking of that, I have that very thing going on in my life right now. I'm in a learning group and we actually are meeting 4 times as a large group in Chicago. So it's an event that's 4 days, but it's spread out once a quarter. And after the second one, I'm like, I need to have an accountability group of people because I'm the only one from Capstone going. So I too have found my couple of people that we get together every few weeks to check in on how we're applying what we learned and help each other do that since we really want a return on investment for our educational dollar and time.
I love that. Yeah.
So, as we get ready to wrap up, it's amazing how fast these episodes go. These conversations are great. Thank you for being willing to come on and share your perspectives on both being an audience member as well as a trainer at these events. But is there any last minute thoughts or comments that you want to make before we wrap up today, Courtney?
I would just say that investing in your whole team being there, that's going to be a great investment. And so attending these healthcare executive forums, our location this year is a very easy to get to location. And so travel isn't a challenge at this one. And so just considering having your whole team there, there's a great return on investment in that. And so that would be the one thing that I would want to reinforce.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we've had people attend this event every single year since we started. We've had executives that never miss it. We've had entire executive teams that have come together to this event year after year. And I think that just speaks to the value. You don't keep repeating and going back to an event every year unless there truly is value. And you mentioned some very important points about the value of the camaraderie, the actionable takeaways, as well as the networking. And they find that value. And every year they experience a new topic to, get that value from. So, yeah, I think that speaks a lot when we have repeat attenders, some of which have never missed in all the time we've offered this. So, to those executives out there that haven't tried it yet, come experience it for yourself. And maybe you too will be a year after year repeat attender as well. All right. So, one thing I am going to do is make sure that we have the link to the registration and the details and information about the event the date, location, all of that. So we'll make sure that that is in the show notes and make it real easy for people to check out the details as well. So thank you again, Courtney. So we'll have you back soon. I won't wait so long next time.
Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.